Hey everybody, it's Tim Baldermann and welcome to this edition of Too Honest for Social Media, where we talk about local, county, state, federal issues that will impact you, important matters to you. I've got two very special guests here with me today, Gary and Mary Linfoot. They're here to talk about their careers and what they're doing and their American Mobility Project. So I'm really excited to have you both. Thanks for joining me here today.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Appreciate you having us.
Absolutely. So, Gary, let's talk a little bit first about your upbringing, your career. You were in the military. Talk a little bit about how that got started.
Yeah, so actually, shortly after my acting career in Hollywood went bust. No, just joking. No, I joined the military in 1987.
Okay.
And after 23 years, I retired. And during that career, I got to do a lot of things that I enjoyed doing. Most of all was flying. After 10 years of flying, I found myself with the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, where I flew little bird guns, the AH-6. Enjoyed doing that and did that for the rest of my Army career until, unfortunately, I had an accident overseas in Iraq in 2008, which put me in a wheelchair. So a couple years after that is when I retired and moved on from the military to do other things.
That's great. So did you always want to be in military service growing
I think so.
up, or was there
As far
something?
back as I can remember, there was always something I wanted to do in the military, whether it be, I always had a fascination with the Rangers and Special Forces. And for the longest time, that's what I wanted to do. And then I got bit by the aviation bug. Probably towards the end of middle school, early high school, and where I lived in Los Angeles, we used to have Huey helicopters would fly overhead.
Sure.
And you just hear that whop, whop, whop. And then went out to a couple of air shows and got up close to some of the helicopters, some of the gunbirds. And I was just bit. And I was like, that's what I wanted to do. And out of all the branches, the Army had the quickest way into the cockpit with their Warrant Officer Flight Program. And so that's the way I went. So I was going to go to college, and I was like, well, I don't need to go to college if I can do this warrant officer thing, and went active duty and went overseas for about a year and a half over to Germany.
Okay.
And while I was in Germany, I put in my application for flight school and got picked up for it, came home, and went to flight school in '89.
Wow, okay. So 2 years after you enlisted.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right, well, I just let you know as we get into this, you're talking to somebody who I've been on 5 different continents, 30-some different, but I am terrified of flying. So I have a particular seat that I have to sit in on every flight.
Okay.
I have to sit on the wing because that's where I'm told, don't ruin it for me if it's not true. I'm told that's where the least amount of turbulence is because it's the center of the plane, and I will only fly first thing in the morning because there's less turbulence, and I stare out the window the entire flight so I can see the ground. So,
Okay. Well, fortunately for you, that's where all the gas is, right over
there
the
you
wing.
go.
So you
it's
got that
quick.
going for you.
All right. Well, I appreciate you.
You bet.
Listen,
I'm
people
glad I
who
could
have
do that
flown with
for
me,
you.
yeah, they will tell you anytime the plane shakes, and my kids are with me, they go, Dad, I think we got a problem.
Yeah.
It's that nice kids. But so Mary, so you were what on a Hollywood set when you met Gary? That's how this all started. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so I grew up in Iowa and went to college in Nebraska. After I graduated, started a business career and moved a little bit throughout the country, but ended up in Monterey, California. Was working out there, and my friend sent me up on a blind date, and that's where I met Gary.
And how did it go? Were you pretty sure there was going to be a second date after that first one?
Well, actually, my
my
friend sent me up then with another friend of his, and he was out of town, so I went out with him, but went straight back to Gary. Gary was the match.
I think so I think that was the setup, set you up with a worse guy and one that bailed.
Yeah.
So you went back. Good move.
Good, yeah, I know, right?
I think
I've got some game.
Yeah, you've got some game. Something tells me you do have some game, but I think you're the winner in this one, I believe.
Yeah, by outkicked my coverage, as they say in Tennessee.
You and many of us,
Yeah.
that's for sure. So I have to ask you, because, of course, my daughter went to the University of Iowa, which is a great school. I've been to Iowa many times. Great place. Were you in a rural setting there in Iowa? Were you in one of the cities?
I grew up in Sioux City, Iowa.
Okay.
So, but my grandparents were farmers in South Dakota, so I got to see some farm life there, but grew up in Sioux City. Went to college in Wayne, Nebraska.
Okay. So now, was Gary already in the military when you two met and started dating?
Yes, Gary was in the military. He was a pilot. He was a new pilot. He was such a new pilot, and he looked so young that his nickname was Bambi.
Oh.
Back in the day, before all these wrinkles.
Bambi's got game.
Yep.
I love it. All right, so you're serving our country and around the world, and you talked about this accident, which of course horrific. Can you go into a little bit of detail about what happened and?
Yeah. So I was on my 21st deployment. I'd done one to Afghanistan very early in the war, like October of 2001. Short deployment to Afghanistan, and then 2003 we started going over to Iraq. And now our rotations, I said I had 21. Some people will be like, 21 rotations. 2008 we weren't there that long. But our rotations tended to be anywhere from, the shortest was about 30 to the longest about 90 days.
Wow.
So I would rotate to Iraq and back home, do training, do other things, go back to Iraq, and do that 4 to 5 times a year.
Wow.
When I first ended up in the hospital at Walter Reed, they'd come through and they'd ask you questions to evaluate your mental state, to check for traumatic brain injury or something, especially following a crash. And they would ask that question, well, how many times have you been over there? And I think, I don't know, 19, 20, something like that. I'm not sure. And they'd get real quiet. They'd scribble some stuff on the paper and they'd leave the room. And I'm like, oh, yeah, they think I got hit in the head.
That's right.
But our rotations were short because of what we were doing.
Sure.
The intensity of those rotations were usually pretty high. So as soon as we hit the ground, we were oftentimes off the back of the jet and into the helicopters. We'd go out and do a mission. We'd do that for, 45 days or something like that. So we stayed pretty busy, especially, hunting down all of Saddam and his henchmen. And then we shifted to AQI, which was Al-Qaeda in Iraq. Mm-hmm. And, just picking off those guys, start with a little fish and then move up to the bigger fish. 2006 through the early part of 2008, the intensity was pretty high. So every time we left the FOB to go out on a mission, it usually ended up in some sort of a gunfight. Maybe a couple shots, or somebody was going to get shot at. Sure. Usually on these missions. So the night of my accident wasn't unusual. It was the same type of mission I had done many times before, just providing close air support to the ground force. This particular night, we're working with the Special Air Service, the Brits, one of our coalition partners, and it was going to be a real simple mission. We were going to link up near the target. I was going to escort them into the target, and they were going to do a call out of whoever it was they were going for, and then kind of an escalation of force from there if needed. And we were, as the AH-6 flight, we were the escalation of force that they would use if they had to get somebody out. So it wasn't going to be anything special, nothing we hadn't done before. And just on the way to the target, never made it. Had gone into holding, waiting for the ground force to get to their position, and lost a very critical part in the helicopter that held the drive shaft, the transmission engine drive shaft. That is what we lost. So when that part blew out, we didn't have any power going to the rotor. So on a helicopter, you do what's called an auto rotation. And you get one shot at doing an auto rotation. And auto rotations are difficult in themselves. They can be successfully done, especially if you're very light, as we do in training. But in combat, it's a different story. We were heavy on fuel, heavy on bullets. It was under night vision goggles, zero visibility, dusty, windy. And we're low altitude to start with. We're about 300 feet.
Okay.
So you add in all those factors, and a lot of stuff can go wrong. And end result was we hit the ground hard. I did the best I could that night, but just didn't pull it off as well as I would have hoped. So we hit the ground, and this particular aircraft I was flying, the H-6M model, was a new aircraft, and we had gone from the analog age into the digital age. So we had a lot of black boxes, and during the design of this, they needed some real estate for this one particular black box, and they were like, well, there's room under the seat, so they put it under the seat. Unfortunately, the seat in a helicopter, this was designed to be a crush box.
Okay.
So on a hard landing or in a crash, that just like sitting on a cardboard box, it would crush and dissipate some of the impact forces. Unfortunately, with a solid, piece of like a computer box under that seat, it wasn't able to crush like it was supposed to. So all those impact forces went right through my back and hit L1 T12 and just blew it out completely. So when we impacted the ground, I was paralyzed instantly. I remember feeling my legs kind of like fall over, and everything came to a stop. And I told my friend that I was flying with, I said, hey, we got to get out of this thing. He was able to get out. He had broke his back as well. He got out of the aircraft, went to the front of it, and he went to the ground, broken back, plus he had a severe concussion. And I guess when I realized I was paralyzed, I reached with my right hand to grab hold of the outside of the cockpit and go to step out, and my legs didn't work.
Right.
So I think I knew right then I was paralyzed, but I was hoping it was something else. So I felt my legs. I was like, maybe I just busted both of my femurs, and my body's in shock and I can't feel it. Checked my legs, and everything was intact and good. I just couldn't use them anymore. So
horrific, absolutely horrific. This was a nighttime.
It was, yeah. Yep.
So were they able to get to you pretty quickly, or
pretty quick? Where we landed was kind of in a rural area south of Baghdad, and we always go out on a flight of two. So a trail aircraft, they were overhead. They saw the whole thing, so they called for help to get back up. When the call went out, we had another part of the task force was going in on a target somewhere else with two Blackhawks full of Rangers. So immediately they diverted, made it to our crash site. I guess we were probably on the ground probably about 30 minutes, I guess, before they got there, landed, secured the crash site, and started getting us out of there.
I'm sure that seemed like an eternity.
It did. It seemed like a very long time. Yeah. Once everything stopped moving and it quieted down, it got real quiet.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, and then you just sit there and you got a lot of thoughts running through your head when you're like, well, I'm ready to shoot anybody that comes up on me and fight this thing to the end if somebody does come.
Sure.
Fortunately, nobody came for us other than our own people.
Yeah. Oh, unbelievable. So how'd you get notified of this?
So I had been at the ball field all day with my daughter. As you do things with your kids all day. Just walked in the door. My son had been home alone, so I brought home his favorite ice cream, hoping he'd spend some time with me. Walked in the door, and the phone was ringing, and we still had a phone on the wall. This was 2008, but I always kept one with the cord, so we knew where it was, basically. And I picked it up, and it was actually Gary calling.
Oh.
And he asked me, has anybody from the unit contacted you? And I thought, oh no, something happened to somebody else.
Sure.
And this is not going to be good news. And then he said that he told me he had a, quote, hard landing, and that he thought his back was broken, or his back was broken. And I felt bad because I thought, oh, his back's going to hurt forever. And then he told me that, his legs didn't work. And I kind of put that on the back burner. I didn't want it to be dramatic. I didn't want, let's just move forward from what this is. And for some reason, I had the presence of mind to have him talk to both the kids. By this time, our 16-year-old was home, and then our 14-year-old son. And so they could hear his voice.
Yeah, sure.
And so when we hung up, my son just looked at me and he said, Mom, this means he never has to go back, right? And so that was really brought things into perspective. Sure. So it was a good way to find out, to hear Gary's voice and to know that, it was just him, still him, and that I'm thankful I never had to go through not knowing if he was going to survive or not. I didn't ever have to live through that, and it's something I'm thankful for.
Absolutely. Like you said, you knew you wanted to be the one making that call because you couldn't imagine, I'm sure, what your wife would be thinking if she got it from somebody else.
Actually, I didn't think there'd be a call at all. Usually, when an incident happens, the compound where we're at, they go radio silence, no phone calls in or out.
Sure.
And usually, when something goes, a helicopter crashes. Usually, it's really bad news. We're making next to kin notifications. So this was kind of unusual because, once I got to the hospital, I was out of the control of JSOC, and so the hospital, they took over. They're like, has anyone talked to your wife? And I'm like, I don't know. Usually the procedure would be that the unit would notify my wife that there's been an incident. So by the time I got to the hospital and they started doing the triage and everything, I don't remember who it was. One of the docs or one of the nurses came in, asked me if I'd called home, and I was like, no, we don't do that. And so she asked me what the phone number was, and she had a cell phone or a sat phone, I guess.
Sure.
Dialed up the number and said, here, talk to your wife. And so I thought by that time the unit had already talked to her. And I think one of the first questions I asked was if anybody had talked to her. Yeah. And she said no, and then so I broke the news to her.
Well, that was wonderful. The nurse did that for you, and you were able to talk, as you said,
it all
talk to
worked
the
out
kids as well. Well, I will tell you a couple things. Number one, here in New Lenox, which was incorporated in 1946, the motto of this community is the home of proud Americans, and we really love that. We hold on to that, and we have a very strong military presence. Our VFW, our American Legion. You will meet some of them at the event that we're going to be at tomorrow night. But anytime I'm speaking to the veterans and to our active service members as well, I always make sure that I say thank you to the spouses and to the families, because every day life has to go on, and you have to take care of the kids, you've got to take care of the home, you have to do that. Well, they're taking care of our country. And I do know, I was a policeman for 22 years. I do know that you cannot be dedicated in doing what you're doing, or it's much, much harder if you don't have the love and support of somebody at home taking care of business. So thank you for that. Certainly for your service. And, we have to be careful because the word hero is thrown around an awful lot. Somebody who did the combat missions that you did and served our country, in my eyes, is a hero. But what you two have done since that is truly what's heroic. Nobody would fault you for saying, that's it, I'm cashing in my chips, I'm done, I'm mentally, physically, I've had enough, whatever it is, but you didn't. So let's talk about the American Mobility Project and what, obviously, I'm sure you went through at Walter Reed, and you as well, some dark times, some difficult times, but what was it that made you say, we're going to do something with this now? Tell us a little bit about that and about the American Mobility Project.
I'll try to make it as short and concise as possible. Shortly after coming home from Iraq and going through rehab with the VA and also the Shepherd Center, at total 3 months, I think.
3 months.
Yeah, I think almost 3 months to the day from the crash to making it home. I came home shortly after I got home. My unit commander asked if I would be interested in this thing called an iBot. I said, I'm not sure what that is. And he says, well, it's a power chair, and it has off-road capabilities and goes up and down stairs. And the home we were living in had stairs, and we were right there in the midst of trying to figure out how to make it accessible. So I thought, I could probably use something like that. And so I didn't know what was going on behind the scenes, but it was working with an organization at the time called the Huey 091 Foundation, and with the Air Power Foundation, a big thing called Skyball down in Dallas, Texas, that Jim Palmersheim was. He was the mastermind behind all that, putting it together. So The wreck was in May. That October, went down to Skyball in Texas and was presented a iBot wheelchair, and it was a game changer. And I didn't realize how much of a game changer it was, because looking back now, I can see how many doors it really opened up for us, and everything that I've done with the iBot, I've just always had it, but I've always appreciated it at the mobility that it gave me. Not only does it have off-road capability, go up and down stairs, but it will, using Segway technology, will stand up and balance on two wheels and bring you up to a sitting height of about 6 feet tall, so you're eye to eye with everybody.
Wow.
And that is probably one of the most unique features about the iBot, because when you're in a chair, especially if you go to a crowded social gathering, you're down below everybody's
Sure.
line of sight, so you get run into, and if you kind of find yourself, you kind of sequester yourself to a corner just so you're out of the way and not getting bumped into. And then when you meet people, it's awkward for you, awkward for them, because they're like, do I take a knee? Do I keep standing? What do I do? So it's just always there's an unspoken awkwardness about
Sure.
the whole thing sometimes. But with the iBot, if you're in that same scenario, you're in balance mode, you're eye level with everybody. So people just kind of come up, and you can have conversations, you can be with your buddies and kind of fit in, and that disability just kind of fades into the background, if you will.
Sure.
And you feel normal, people feel normal around you, and it's just really nice. It's nice they have that ability. And so after receiving the iBot, we started doing stuff with Palmersheim, and we called it Jim's Roadshow or whatever, and we'd go to schools and we'd talk to
Sure.
kids, and I had all this, being a veteran and with the VA, they did a really good job. I was well equipped. I had a nice wheelchair. I had a backup wheelchair. I had a hand cycle that I could use, to go riding in. Had my vehicles were modified, home was getting modified, so I had all this stuff. And then anything the VA couldn't provide or would not provide, there were a lot of civilian organizations that would step up to bat that were, doing things for the veteran community, especially the post 9/11 veterans.
Sure.
So I had all this really nice equipment, especially this high speed equipment. So we would go to schools, and we'd talk to kids and talk about patriotism, service,
Sure.
sacrifice, the cost of freedom, the importance of education, and we'd always meet people that had a disability. Maybe they were in a wheelchair or knew somebody that was in a wheelchair, and they would see this iBot. And they would ask, how could they get one, and what the cost of it was. And back then it was like $25,000
Wow.
a copy, so it was expensive. A lot cheaper then than it is now, for sure. So we'd tell them, it's $25,000, and you just see they would get kind of disappointed, and they would go on about their business. Because something like that was just out of their reach and was probably going to be out of their reach. So
Sure.
we always felt bad about that. We had everything, it seems, and there were a lot of people that had nothing or wouldn't be able to afford what we had. So in 2019, I was the recipient of a home by the Gary Sinise Foundation.
Sure.
Built a beautiful home out on some acreage that we owned, and fully accessible home. And after receiving that, we were like, this really sets us up for an opportunity to give back. And so we kind of put thought into action, and we started the American Mobility Project. And the mission of American Mobility Project is to provide the high speed equipment, adaptations, and improve accessibility to enhance life and I'm doing a really terrible job at giving our mission statement, and I'll give you the book.
You're not.
But it's basically, we want to help improve, the lives of others. And so we provide equipment that insurance generally does not provide. So that includes things like the iBot. It can be an iBot, it can be a track chair, it can be a backup chair, it could be any number of things. If they need it and they can't get it through insurance, or it's going to take forever, we try to step in and provide that equipment. And Mary can give you all the stats on how much equipment we've been able to provide. But we're just kind of a conduit. We started out a completely volunteer nonprofit. We now have one employee, our executive director, that's kind of running a lot of the things that was just taking up so much time for us to do.
Sure.
She's doing it all now, but we've been able to do a lot, and we tell people we're the conduit for your generosity, and donate every dollar that comes in. I won't say every dollar because we do have a little bit overhead, but the vast majority of the money that comes in goes right back out to equipment.
Well, and as you touched on, it's not just about mobility. It's making people feel whole again and being a part of life the way that they were accustomed to prior maybe to having an accident or a disability.
It's getting people back to work. It's getting people out in their community and able to do things that they weren't able to do before.
Yeah, so it's as you know, better than anyone. It does just as much for you mentally and emotionally as it will for you physically, or overcoming some of those other obstacles.
Yeah, and you should see some of the photos we get from people with the equipment, just the joy on their faces, and their family members too. The caregivers, it's very difficult for them, so to be able to take some of the burden off of them to make life easier for them as well is
life-changing
a big part
for a lot of people. That's wonderful. So Mary, let's talk about 2019. It starts. What kind of impact have you had so far with the American Mobility Project, and where are you hoping to take it next?
Yeah, we've provided over $1.8 million worth of equipment for people living with disabilities. And that includes the iBot wheelchairs, which, some of the stories that we have like students that are able to go to any college in the country, and they don't have to worry about the topography, and they can go up and down hills in their wheelchairs and participate in all sorts of things. And they can be a veterinarian or whatever they want to do. One of the gals that, one of our first recipients of an iBot, the video she sent when she got home was of her out castrating I guess it wouldn't be a cow, but
bull calf.
Yeah, bull calf. But yeah, so like you can just go out and do things, and we provide adaptive cycles for kids that need sufficient support and help with that, and so they can ride bikes with their friends. They're like the other kids, and the other kids they'll wheel up with their bike and they'll be like, cool wheels, like they're included. And family members that can take the kids out on trails, and the siblings love it, and just all sorts of things that we can provide. Whatever kind of equipment is best for that individual, and it's usually custom built for them. So it's just very, very, very rewarding. And it's a big part of, maybe this is a little selfish, but it's a big part of healing. I think that you get a lot of healing in your own life when you can give to other people. And I really feel like blessed to be able to do it. And personally, I believe and know that, really God's had a big part of that when he connects us with donors, and then he connects us with recipients, and it just shines all over everywhere. And our people are amazing. Our recipients are amazing people.
Well, I would tell you that selfish is probably the last word that anybody would use to describe folks like you. Again, prior to your accident, prior to the American Mobility Project, you dedicated your life to serving our country, which we are eternally grateful for people who are willing to do that. And as I said to you, Mary, we know that's only possible because there's great people at home taking care of business and taking care of the kids, and so selfish is not who you are, it's not who you were, but to really just have that kind of integrity and fortitude to say, I know what this has done for me, and not just say, oh, now I've got this better life because of this, and just enjoy your life. You dedicate all your time and energy to helping others so they can have some hope and a better life too. So truly inspirational, truly inspirational. I would encourage everybody, I'm sure you'd be inspired by hearing this today, to look up the American Mobility Project. Just to see what they're all about. Share the word with people. That's important too, that they know that there is hope out there. And if you're so inclined to do something to help out a great cause like this, I think that's fantastic. So we really appreciate it. Gary, you did talk a little bit about being out in the schools, and of course the reason that I've been fortunate enough to meet the both of you is because we are going to be in some of our local schools, and you and another one of our American heroes and our buddy Tony Orlando are going to be out talking to kids. And I'm going to have some of my school kids there from my other job, where again, your military service and what you've done, I mean, that's enough to inspire people. But what we really want these kids to learn is, despite all odds, if you're willing to do the best you can and fight for it and do for others, good things can happen for you. Don't give up, no matter how dark things seem. There's always light, and it can always get better, and you're living proof of that. So
we look forward to it, and when you get a chance to talk to young kids and young adults about just this country really is a special place. So
it is, and we talk about that quite a bit. It's the social media is, that's why we do this, because social media is so horrible, what you see out there. But the reality is, no matter what differences we have, no matter what's going on that we may be unhappy with, we live in the greatest country in the world. There is no question about that. And we have the freedoms to do the things, and the overwhelming majority of the people are just good people. We always hear from the ones that have something to complain about. But I'll tell you what, I have been fortunate to travel to 30 other countries, and there's absolutely no place like the United States of America. No question.
And to get these kids to see that and to themselves step up and serve. It doesn't have to be military service, right? But service to your community, service through your church, just
service to mankind.
Helping
others.
Be
kind and compassionate.
Being a good person.
Isn't that the key?
Yep.
And that's what I tell my kids at school. I said, we'll worry about math and reading later. Right now, it's about who you are as a person. And what type of person you want to be. And once you really make that connection with kids like that, they know you care about them. Then they're open to learning about these other things. So God bless both of you, and thank you for your continued service to our country in the way that you're doing it now.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to thank all of you for watching or listening to this edition of Too Honest for Social Media.